Well, you know, there's fairly small feedback here, so I'm going to assume that this is all going out. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Chris Crowell, and I am the topic nanny for game design with the IGDA webinars, Wednesday webinars. And today's topic is monetizing. So bear with me. This is my second webinar. I tend to keep it really casual, so if you've got questions, go ahead and post them in the questions field. If there's somebody who is an expert in this category, I would love to promote you up to a co-presenter and have you also, you know, I can unmute your mic and you can contribute to the conversation. So don't be shy. This is all about participating and having us help each other, you know, learn and become better at what we do. Okay, let's see here. I show at 2 minutes after the hour. We've got 30 people here, so why don't I go ahead and get the show on the road. Actually, if you guys could go ahead and type, just sort of say hello or something in the questions section, just so I know that everything's there. Ah, great. Hello, Meebo. Thank you. There we go. Great. All right, good. Everybody can hear me. Hi, folks. Okay, fantastic. Sorry, I'm looking off screen here. It's because I've got my second monitor going on. Yay. Okay, great. So we have people who are willing to say hello. So I'm feeling pretty jazzed. I know all of you now, and the NSA is scanning your personal web history. So I'll have more information to share with you soon. All right. Hey, we got a guy, Marcelo from Brazil. The one guy in Brazil who's not paying attention to the little round ball going around. By the way, an example of a game having worldwide impact. Just saying, sports like football and golf have this, you know, huge impact, and they're often not really considered as part of our whole métier of games. All right, well, I don't want to just sit here and editorialize. I've prepared a presentation to go over this. Now, I have, this is based on my personal experience. I've been making games for a while. Well, let me just go through the thing here, and we'll discuss it. So here we are. So just to talk about what these Wednesday webinars are, every Wednesday at this time, the IGDA is hosting a webinar on various kinds of topics. The third Wednesday of the month is when we go over game design. And I'll be posting a schedule of all the different kinds of topics that that we'll be covering. We'll be getting guest speakers in. So I don't want this to be the Chris show. I really want this to be things that we all find interesting. He's not a fan of soccer. Okay, great. So the first session that we had a month ago, we identified the monetization as one of the things that everybody was interested in. So I've put this together, and we'll use it as a topic. This is me. I've been making games, all kinds of games, racing games, adventure games. I did an MMO, I did a Facebook game, virtual worlds, all this kind of stuff. I've been doing all these different kinds of things. I was formerly on the board of directors of the IGDA. I personally believe that games can be a power for good in the world, and I really actively am working to do that. And as you can see from my picture, I stepped outside my tree that I live inside. It's that odd character. All right, so today we're talking about monetizing. Monetizing, what is it? How to design for it, and then we're going to have a Q&A at the end where I'll try to answer what you're thinking. All right, so I know what you're thinking. Monetization, awful, right? It's the evil thing that we need to do, and we're just like, it's this thing sort of founded by Zynga that we're going to just go in there and we're going to take advantage of people with poor impulse control, and we're going to take the candy from them. I don't believe in that. I mean, there's some of those things have happened, but a big part of what I want to talk about today is how we can be, you know, moral designers and really think about how we can bring value for the money that people are spending. All right, so the term, I always like to start off this area, what is the established definitions of this stuff, right? So monetization is a process of converting or establishing something into legal tender. So really, even if you ran around, and took your old guitar down to the pawn shop and got some money for it, that is technically a form of monetization. But of course, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is how it matters to games. And so charging fees for something that used to be free, or attempting to make money on goods and services that were previously unprofitable or had been considered to have the potential to earn profits. That's that's from the wiki on monetization, and that's really more the kind of thing that we're talking about, where we have these things in games that we used to charge for. So what happened here? Where did my there it is. Okay, somehow the clicky thing is happening. So why do we need monetization? Well, because we're in this to make money, right? Like, we love games, we make games, but really, if we're not making money off of it, it's just a hobby that takes a lot of time. So most of us have this thing where we need to sleep inside a house, and we need food and all those kinds of things. So just accept the fact that we are commercial artists and we need to generate revenue somehow. So let's look at how we used to do this, right? So it's sort of the model across all the games. The main one was just purchase. You buy the game up front for a set amount of money before you get to play it. And so the pros of that were, as a consumer, consumers know how much they're going to be spending. They get the whole game. That's the old model anyway. Then we get the whole game, and it was really, I mean, that kind of transaction is very, very straightforward. And in the real world, 90% of purchases work this way, right? When I go out and I buy a loaf of bread, or I fill up my gas tank, or any of those kinds of things, this is how it works, right? You put the money down, you buy the thing, it's just same time transaction. The benefit to the publisher under this model is that the publisher gets that money right then and there, right? Like, you're going to get 90% of your revenue very quickly after you've published the game. So that's kind of cool. The cons of this is that players have to spend before they know if they even like the game. And when this was the only game in town in terms of how things were done, players had no choice about this. But the internet and virtual goods being delivered over the internet and through mobile phones have really changed the game a lot. And so this is now a pretty big deal that people want to know whether they like it or not before they spend the money. For some people, it can be difficult to scrape up. A large, the $70 you need, 60 or $70 to buy a AAA console title, right? Like that's a significant, chunk of money to plop down. And it also creates a revenue bubble for the publisher. So it's nice for the publisher that they get the money quickly, but they kind of get it all in this one big lump sum. And then, of course, being human beings, they can have a tendency to spend it or just not have it, 4 months down the line when they're working on the next game. They can start running low on funds, and we see studios going under because of their money management practices, that it's just not working out for them. Okay, so that's historically, that's what we had. You go in, and that's still, it's still there, and that's not a question for us today, really, because I think everybody, that really doesn't involve the game designer much at all, except to make maximum game within the constraints of the project budget, right? Like, other than that, for a long time, I didn't have to think about what we were going to be charging for the game at all. That was someone else's problem. I could just really focus on the fun factor. Okay, so another older model is subscription-based, right? So this is where you're paying a set fee on a regular basis to continue playing the game. So this is nice, right? Because you don't necessarily have to put a chunk of money down ahead of time. You can pay as you go. You've got a lot of small payments instead of a big one. You can plan for it, right? Like, I know that on the kids' games I worked on, there were parents who uh, who really appreciated the fact that they could basically kind of set up an allowance for their kids that would pay for their game subscriptions. It's also nice because there's a smooth revenue stream for the publisher, so they can say, you know, every month we've got this nice, you know, fat, nice chart there that shows the revenue coming in, as opposed to like these really weird, you know, bumps and jumps. So you know, on the spreadsheet logic side of things, that works really well for the publisher. And because you have the this ongoing commitment and transaction between the player and the service provider, you can really get some strong communities built up there, more so than, you know, someone who just walks into a store and buys an Xbox game and comes home and is playing it. So those are all positive sides of the subscription model. The bad side of it is it can be complicated to set up your credit cards. It changes. This is where the game design starts, you know, is considered, because it changes just a product into a service. So instead of, you know, selling somebody something that they're going to just take home, you have an ongoing relationship with the player. So you're going to have ongoing support operations, and you're going to be issuing regular updates and all those things. And oftentimes, with the subscription model, a lot of the cases, like I say, World of Warcraft, there's an upfront purchase fee, and then a subscription on top of that. So, you know, these are all things that go through people's minds about that. So the examples are like your mobile phone plan, World of Warcraft, and you know, when I was going out and doing research for this, I was trying to think of like, okay, so what are all like the big MMOs and virtual worlds? World of Warcraft and I think EVE are the two that come to mind right now that have an ongoing subscription model. Pretty much we've seen everybody else switch over to the free-to-play, the freemium model. And there are differences in the way that you approach this stuff, and that's really the whole reason why I wanted to have this webinar today. And you can see how pedantic I get about this stuff. It's taking me this long to actually get to the point of saying, all right, why are we even here talking about this stuff? All right, so here's the new model, freemium. Now this is a really new word. It's you know, honestly, it's like 5 years old. It's everybody now understands it. Zynga really put it on the map, and so let's talk about what that is. So you can play the game for free. You can purchase goods and services as you like. So it puts the decision of what to buy and when to buy into the player's hands. And I view that as a positive, right? Because games are all about putting choices in front of players. And so, you know, our job as designers is to offer compelling reasons why people want to play the game, and then now we offer compelling values for why people would want to, you know, put some money in the meter to play, you know, more of the game, or to, you know, to move forward in the game. So that's how we're now being pulled in. And one of the things that I really like about this is that my arguments previously about adding new features and whatnot, you know, pleading with the producers, they're always saying, well, you know, where are we going to get the money to pay for that? So I've actually had experience where we were able to pay for new features by tying it to a you know, a monetization strategy, and so we could get what we wanted. We could give the players more game, and you know, this all kind of works out. All right. The con is, you know, we're inheriting that complicated ongoing payment scheme. So there's considerations about that in terms of you know, credit card transactions or PayPal. Any of these virtual things, there's a whole kind of a security lock consideration that far too often the game designer is dragged into. I mean, it needs to be part of the overall flow of the game, but there's a whole bunch of sort of legal and technical things in there make this a group effort to get these payment schemes set up. That could probably be a whole webinar just on itself, and I don't want to do a deep dive on that. It changes the product to a two-tier service that has free content and premium content, and that's something that as designers we always need to think about. How do you what is the level? And it's a real unknown level, and I would think that it's something that you have to figure out on a game-by-game basis. You can't make everything premium because no one's going to play that game, and you can't. Or at that point, basically, you've recreated a subscription. The other end, you can't make everything free because then you're not going to make any money. So you need to have that sort of sweet spot of there's enough free stuff there to allow players to get engaged, to buy into the whole game experience, and to feel that sense of kind of making it their hobby. That this is a choice that they want to spend time on, and then it's easy for them to justify, oh, you know what, I'm in here a fair amount. I can justify putting $1 here, putting $1 there, maybe $5 here, $5 there. It's the kind of thing that we're all used to doing when we have something that's going on. And so one of the things that you need to be careful about is having this sense of unfairness or exclusive, depending on what you offer to the players. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. But this is a real concern with this freemium kind of a thing, is you want to make sure that the free players understand the value proposition of the premium items and services without feeling like they're being unfairly held down, that the choice is there for them to move forward, and they can feel good about the people who did spend the money, because really those are the people who are keeping the lights on for the free people. And so that's a big part of what we need to do as the game designers, is to manage that sense within the game. So let's take a look here. I have this is my personal example of how things work, and I'm sorry, Marcello, this happens to be soccer. I didn't choose it deliberately this way. This was just a picture I found. So to me, a free game is like a city park. It's out there, and people can just show up and play for free, and that's great. But there's potentially other things that you might want to have while you're out there. So for instance, oh, I'm thirsty, right? Hey man, maybe there's a free water fountain there. Those are kind of going by the wayside now. But okay, so a refreshment stand there. Now, no one's saying I have to go over and spend money to buy a soda or a juice, but since I'm here playing soccer, why not? That seems like something that I can feel pretty good about, right? Oh yeah, our old soccer ball is getting pretty flabby, or I forgot to bring a ball, or I just like these new colors, right? All of that, having that there as an option for people to spend money on is kind of a beneficial thing. One of the nice things that the soccer ball example does also is there's a concept that I have, which is buy something that helps all your friends play. So in the case of a ball, right, if your friends went to the field and you can run around on the field, you can play tag, there's lots of things you can do. But if one person in your group spends $10 or $20 and buys a ball, now everybody can play a new game in this free area, right? So for everybody else in your group, they didn't have to spend anything. And the one guy who did spend the money is a social hero to his friends. He's the guy that owns the ball. So not only does he have the benefit of being able to play the game, all of his friends have the benefit of being able to play that game, and he has the benefit of being the cool guy who made all that possible. So that's a real positive win-win-win situation that we can put into games if we think about it that way. So that's just a little bit of my own personal theorizing there. And then, of course, you know, avatar customization, having clothes, and those kinds of things, right? So all of this stuff here, right, like being able to come out here and play on the field is sensible, and I think we can all understand that. And then having these extra premium items on the side, and of course maybe a combination of in-game currency that you can play simply by playing the game will get you some of this, you know, kind of the less shiny objects in these racks and stores, and then, you know, for hard cash you can get shinier things. So let's talk about that sense of an unfair advantage. Now, generally what we're talking about with the unfair advantage, you know, it's summarized as pay to win. And if you've ever played an online game against other players, you've probably come across this. You've probably heard that phrase. So my sense is that, because I mean, I've looked at this a lot, it's, number one, it's only unfair if people don't understand this is how the game is played, right? So in China, where this movement, sort of this monetizing absolute straightforward game advantages came out of, people there don't have a hard, the players there don't have a hard feeling when they run into somebody who spent, you know, $5 to buy a better gun. That's just understood. That's just the way it is. And more and more, I think we're seeing those kinds of acceptance of a game paradigm with the Western game sphere also. But as a designer, you really need to be up. If you are going to be selling advantages, then that needs to be really clear, and everybody understands that that can happen. And when they choose to go out and play in that game space, that they understand that that's the kind of thing that can happen. Okay. Now, what this means is most of the free-to-play players are not going to be around for very long, because they are essentially goblins to the shining heroes who have spent money, right? They're just minions who are going to get crushed. And so a lot of players are going to poke their nose into a game, find out that, oh, you know, it's this particular kind of a paradigm where it's pay to win, and depending on how engaged they were in that short time that they were playing, they will then face pretty much a hard decision to pay money to join the Shiny Knight gang, or just leave the game. So it's, you know, there's positives and negatives to this. It puts that question out pretty quick, and so the people who are sucking up your bandwidth and doing, you know, using your game resources are people who are monetizing. And so, you know, from one viewpoint, that's a really nice thing. As a game designer, I feel that, well, it's a real challenge to really try to set the hook in a player in such a short amount of time, right? It's just, there's no chance for people to really build an emotional bonding with other players in the game, or with the game experience, or any of those kinds of things that playing a bit longer will help with. So there's a, you know, you're taking that cost benefit in balancing it against the other stuff. And there are companies that are very, very successful with this model. Specifically, you know, this word that I'm using here of whales. I had some other people ask me, well, okay, Chris, what's a whale? And for those that don't know, a whale is an industry term for somebody who comes in, a big spender. in a game environment. You know, it sounds crazy, but there are players who will spend several $100s a month on free-to-play games. This has become their new hobby. You know, like if you look at how much you spend on snowboarding or skiing or, you know, scuba diving or motor you know, there's a lot of there's a lot of hobbies. Actually, console gaming, right? There's a fair amount. You know, we spend a fair amount of money on our various hobbies, and for people who decide that this is going to be their hobby at least for a while, you know, they're very comfortable with spending a significant amount of their disposable income. There is a story that I read, I can't remember exactly where this was, but there was a company that was noticing they had a player who was spending $10,000 a month. They naturally were curious to see whether this was some kind of a bug in their metrics gathering data or whatever. They tracked him down, and it was a sheikh from an oil-producing country. This was just, he was playing it, I don't remember what the game was, but it was just a game, and he just, like 10 grand was like pocket change to him, so this was his hobby, and he would spend time on it, and he had no problem spending a whole bunch of money. So part of this whole freemium thing is a huge part of designing for this is knowing that there are people who are willing to spend a lot of money. And so when you design your product line, don't think about how much you're comfortable with spending. Always come up with what I call the millionaire class of items that are crazy expensive. And just have them in there, right? If nothing else, it helps justify for somebody like me to say, well, good Lord, you know, that's $100 or whatever. I'm certainly not going to spend $100 on that, but it makes me feel a lot better if I look at this like, well, I'm sensible. I'm only spending $10 on this thing here, right? Whereas if $10 was the limit, the cap of the items that you're creating, then what's reasonable becomes like, well, $3 or $5. So just think about that. And this isn't evil, right? This is people, you're not putting the hard sell on anybody. You're just kind of having it there. And for people who have disposable income and they want to sort of show it off, right? This is how Maseratis get sold. This is Rolls Royces. These are all, you know, these crazy designer purses for $2,000. All of that stuff is there just to let people with a lot of disposable income feel good about spending the money. And it's just, you're crazy if you don't have some of that in there. Okay, so, but anyway, the unfair advantage thing, be aware of it, and this is really one of the most important aspects of this freemium model, is think about this and check with your players and see what they think about what seems fair and what's not fair. Don't just automatically do what they suggest, but think about it and consider it and think about what you want to do. My rationale for not always taking feedback straightforward is, you know, on my time when I was working with kids games, if you ask a kid, do you want to have Christmas every day of the year, they're going to say yes, right? But what's that going to do to Christmas? It's going to ruin Christmas. Christmas will no longer be special. It'll just become boring. It's just sort of the thing that happens every day. So don't just take feedback and do it. Take the feedback, think about it. That's why we get, you know, that's why there is such a thing as game designers. Our job is to take this information and really consider what are the ramifications of taking these actions. It's a little sideline thought, but it's important. So the unfair, let's see some examples of unfair. All right, the stand here sells a steroid shake that lets you go at, you know, twice as fast as anybody else on the field. For example, I'm exaggerating, right? Or you have a smart ball that's actually, you know, it's just a homing missile that'll fly towards the goal while you're playing. This is the kind of thing, if you're the guy who spends $1 to get this stuff, you're going to feel amazing as you just run around. You're going to be like Michael Jordan playing against pretty much anybody else. you're just going to crush them. But for the people who are being crushed, you know, which is a lot more than that $1 guy, you know, what is the experience like? And think about this. And maybe there is room in your game for these kinds of things, but this is the stuff that will definitely trigger that sense of unfairness. And the unfairness is only a problem when it comes to a player versus player competition of any kind. But it's most pronounced when it's player versus player in like a head-to-head thing, right? So if we take these guys who are in the middle of the screen here, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you know, in this face-off here, if one of these guys has got the homing missile or he's twice as fast as the other guy, these guys here on the fence are going to be pretty pissed off when this guy just runs faster than they possibly can. A possible design solution would say, all right, for $1, I get 10 of these supercharged sprints, you know, and I can hit a button, and for the next 5 seconds, I'm supercharged. You know, depending on the way things are, you know, the guys on defense could say, well, you know, I had the opportunity to buy that stuff too, whatever, I don't know. But this is just some examples of things. Because it's face-to-face and it's right there, it's going to trigger some. There will definitely be some players who are very unhappy about that. The other kind of competition you could have is what I would consider asynchronous competition, where let's say you're competing to be #1 in a leaderboard, or yeah, let's use a leaderboard example, right? So yes, because I spent money, I gained abilities that allow me to shoot further ahead on the leaderboard, and I can be a king for a day or whatever. It's less immediately frustration triggering, but it's there. If those leaderboards matter to people, and you know, and the people who got pushed down further on the list are find out that somebody spent money to move themselves further ahead on the list, that, you know, that could, depending on how that's handled, that could be a problem. All right. So unlocking new content. So this is kind of a thing that's going on. Episodic content or gated content, new areas and story sections, right? Telltale Games is doing a very successful model right now with the episodic content, where every so often they come out with a new chapter in the story, and for $1 or whatever, you can download that, you can get it, and play it, right? So that's a model that a lot of people understand, and you know, it's definitely something that stories and TV shows are exploring to see, right? Once again, it's a very easy idea for consumers to understand, and it benefits the publisher in that it allows, you know, a revenue stream that's directly tied to this new content. The other way of doing this is the gated content. So I was playing Wizards 101 and with my family, and I was in the free-to-play section, and we were having a good time, and we hit this place. We basically played out all the free-to-play areas, and to go to the next area was time to pay up. And we kind of took a vote around the house and thought, you know what, we've been having a good time. We played a considerable amount of time here, where it lets us, you know, this game has a lot to offer us. So we went ahead and did the pay for all of us so we could run around as a family and keep doing things together, right? So that was a hard decision point where we had to decide yes to continue or no. There's some real positives to this, right? Like it makes it really clear to the player. It offers a clear decision point, and you know, as a designer, you can, you know, really plan for that and make sure that everything that leads up to that is is really engaging and gives the player a fair sense of, okay, this is what I'll be paying for as I go forward. So that's all, to me, that's all really good stuff, and it makes sense. You know, you've been playing for free. It's like you've been demoing the game, and now you can keep going. So the general sense is generally perceived as fair, but once again, as with all these things, you really need to manage that, because you will have some people who say, oh, what, I got to pay, I've been doing it for free, that's no fair, that's no fair. You know, it's the business, and you need to, at some point, you need to get some revenue coming in. So don't worry about that. You will hear it, and that's just the way it is. Oops, okay. No, leave that alone. I hope I'm not getting a stutter or anything on my video feed. My computer's telling me it's got problems. All right, so because it does put a hard decision point there in front of the players, whoops, let me go previous slide. You have a chance to lose people. But once again, you know, that's going to happen regardless. With a freemium game, you're going to be losing people, and you just need to do it. Oh, what game was that you were playing? It was, for that one, I believe it was Pirate 101. No, Wizards 101, excuse me. That was the freemium game. I really make a point of playing as many of these different kinds of games as possible, just to kind of get us to see what other people are doing. Okay, so gated and new content. I keep coming back here. So team jerseys. This is a way that you know, you can get access to new gameplay with premium content, for instance. So you know, in a lot of MMOs, somebody needs to put money in and spend to form a guild, or you know, you've got team jerseys or something like that. All right, so I think it's pretty clear what the gated stuff is. And you know, if anybody has any questions, go ahead, feel free to post them in there. Okay, and also let me know if I'm talking too fast. I'm concerned about talking for the whole hour, which is not my intention, so I'll try to keep it a little less verbose. Okay, so purchasing the cool items, right? There's customization stuff. These are specifically, they don't provide a gameplay advantage. They're just for aesthetic satisfaction or for bragging rights because they look really cool. And this is generally perceived as fair. This is like the safest kind of premium content that you can put in there, because nobody's going to complain that somebody else bought something that makes them look cool, or that it's a new dance or a new emote or something along those lines, because it doesn't let, in any way, shape, or form, allow someone to win the game more than someone who's not spending the money, right? So if you have a freemium model, for sure, you simply must have these customizing and you know, just cool items. And use your imagination about how you can fit it into the game. Put yourself in the shoes of the player. Think about what you would do to customize what other players see about your game. And it could be, you know, if you were playing an online chess game, maybe you buy, you know, your own custom chess pieces, so that when you're playing a game with someone else, you know, you can see my cool board, and here's, you know, here's my chess pieces, and maybe there's even a setting you could have where, you know, I'm going to be on a remote mountaintop in Tibet is the setting, you know, that when I invite people to play chess with me. There's all kinds of interesting things that you can build in there that just make it kind of more fun for everybody, really. And you know, people will spend more money than you can imagine here. What does it say? Question 17. Number of unanswered questions. Oh, that's just people say. Okay, that's cool. Sorry, I'm still getting the hang of this GoToMeeting interface. So here's some cosmetic stuff. You know, home country jerseys. Once again, I'm kind of talking about the World Cup because that's this big game event going on right now. So that's, and I live in an Italian neighborhood, and so when the Italian team wins, the streets are flooded with people with the Italian flags on their cars, and people are running around with their Italian jerseys, and they're just it's just madness, right? And so stuff like that, people really love that, and they're really willing to spend money on it, and it's a lot of fun for everybody. And so you're crazy if you don't do that. It's just, you just got to have that. Just kind of think about all kinds of fun stuff. Okay, so I'm wrapping it up here as much as I can. So general design principles for freemium is it must be considered fair by players. However you handle that, that's what needs to happen. You can provide shortcuts past grind gameplay. So a lot of times in like Facebook games and whatnot, there's a time that a task will take, and players can spend money to speed up those tasks so that they don't have to wait. That's brilliant. If there's a lot of money being generated. That's a value for the player. They're enjoying the game experience, and they just don't want to wait. And that's, to me, that works out great, because people who have a lot of time and not much money can just grind the gameplay, and people who don't have a lot of time but have the money can give you the money, and then they can get that same game experience. So it's fair for everybody based on what they have the most of. You can provide social advantage by a cool factor. Fairness is 100% on this. You can provide advantage when competing against other players. Yeah, depending on the game, it's fair or it's not fair. You really want to make this, take what's happening in the game and think about ways that players can spend money to improve their experience with the existing gameplay, to get past a barrier. Like if you have, let's say it's a platforming game, and there's just one jump that you just can't make. So for 50 cents, you can teleport, right? And just get past this thing that's really frustrating. I just made that example up, but you get the idea. Just use your imagination. Look at what's happening there. Look at what's frustrating people, and for the people, once again, with a lot of time and no money, they can keep working on making that jump because it's doable. Or somebody who just says, oh, Jesus, I'd gladly pay $1 to just be past this point. I'm not good at this part of the game. Let them do it, right? Like, why would you force somebody to be frustrated? So, I've built that in. Allowing players to give gifts to other players. This is huge, right? If you don't feel comfortable spending money on yourself, well, everybody gets gifts, birthday gifts and Mother's Day gifts and Father's Day gifts, right? All this gifting kind of stuff. That's something that you can feel good about, and it, it's a real nice revenue generation thing, and it's a positive way to generate revenue. Design features that give group benefits instead of just single-player benefits. That idea that, oh, I'm buying the guild charter, or I'm buying a ball that unlocks these group games, or things along those lines, or like in an MMO type of a situation, I drink this, or I activate this thing, and it gives everybody in the group a buff. That kind of thing. Be wary of selling out beloved player efforts. So, for instance, if there's something that you have to, beat this really, really hard boss to get, right? It's a special mount, and it only drops 5% of the time, or you can buy it for $20 in the store. This is different than like a grinding gameplay kind of a thing, right? It may be a subtle difference, but it's like buying an Olympic medal, right? You're really robbing the people who went to all the trouble to earn that reward, and if someone else can just buy it, you gotta watch out. It's that keyword there, beloved player efforts. That's you have to look out for that. Anyway, that's just keep that in mind. I think I have a second page here. Okay, so this is general sales principles, because now as designers, we're going to get tasked with managing the the store content also, because it's part of the whole game experience. So just accept it. We need to own this. So you have to have a constant stream of new content. You can't put things out any less than monthly. Weekly is or even every 3 days is ideal. And be creative about how to put kind of repurpose old content, maybe changing the textures on something, or finding really inexpensive ways to bring new content, to kind of have new content in the game. If you have a game where players are customizing a space or customizing their look, having outfits in multiple colors, or having furniture and wallpaper and all this stuff that goes together, all that stuff is valuable to players, and you need to get new stuff out there, because if they say, I want to spend the money, you really need to have something there for them to spend that money on. Okay. Do the seasonal content stuff. People love that, right? Like to have here's the Christmas stuff, here's the Halloween stuff, here's the Easter stuff, here's the whatever, right? Makeup seasons. Just have that kind of a thing where you kind of feel like, oh yeah, there's this connection between the real world and what's going on here. Actually, let me go back to previous. Hang on a second. Here we go. Okay. One of the games that I worked on was Woo's World, which is a virtual world for tweens. I was doing that 4 years ago when the last World Cup came along. We created a whole bunch of World Cup related content, and we were thinking about things. So we had like soccer balls and this and that, and then we were thinking of like creating all these different flags, and that was just going to be a huge problem. So what we came up with was banners of all banners that had the colors that were used in all the different flags. So if you wanted to make a U.S. sort of installation in the game, you could get a red banner, a blue banner, and a white banner. If you wanted to do the Italian, you could have the white and the green and the red, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So that really was, rather than having the very specific thing there, it allowed players to kind of make their own creations and put things together. So just think about that kind of stuff too, and find ways to make it happen. Be creative with how you're going about this stuff. Time box the content so that it's only in the store for a certain amount of time. That gives players a pressure to buy it before it's gone, and it also keeps the store from just turning into something that's so big that you can't find anything, right? So move the older stuff out. The Christmas stuff needs to be gone by New Year's, and then something else comes in. Maybe winter things, but not Christmas anymore. Halloween, man, on November 1st, Halloween is over. Nobody needs anything else there. So think about that as you're doing things, and just be a store manager. Closely monitor the sales to see what's selling and what's a dud. Stuff that you think is going to be awesome isn't, and things that you think are really boring are going to sell like crazy. So just watch that, see what the players are saying, try to understand why some things are more popular than other things, and just evolve as you go. So this kind of stuff works best with strong community management. So when you have a good community communications going on, you can hear what people are excited about. You can see how they're using this content that you're making available to them, and just move forward with that and do it smart. Ask players what they want. Run contests. This is super strong. Ask them what they'd like to see, right? Have people make drawings, or whatever. have them submit things, maybe get the community to vote on what they like the best, and then say, sure, we'll go ahead and put that in the game, you know, and kind of credit that player for putting stuff in there. Players love that, to be part of that, you know, the creation of the game. You know, they're sort of becoming part of the team. That makes for huge fan loyalty. And don't forget to bundle stuff, right? So seasonal packs. Put, you know, rather than buying a bunch of things, it's like, oh, you know, I want to put together a Halloween situation for my character or my place in the game, but I'm not a very creative person. Oh, here's the pack. I can just buy the pack. It gives me everything I need. That's a really good way to go. And also bring back packs of classic items that, you know, just here for 2 weeks. These classic items, you know, because then people can do retro, or maybe they never got it the last time around to complete the set that they want. Now they have one more shot, you know, limited window to complete their collection, things along those lines. Okay. It's such a huge topic. You know, this would normally be possibly a couple of classroom sessions of a couple of hours apiece. So this is just sort of what I could present today on this. Get the source PowerPoint. We're using your presentation. Yes, absolutely. I can post that. We'll figure out how to get that. We're still figuring out how to put this content on the IGDA website, but it absolutely will be there. If you send us an email, I will just mail it to you, and then you can have it. So, you know, send the letters to the webinars at igda.org. Any of the feedback that you have here. And okay, so I have switched my attention completely over to the question section, and we'll see if what's your content. Oh, email everyone. There we are. So the mighty Tristan has responded to everyone. She's the person who gets stuff done. I promise things, she makes them happen. Now I would think that this is a fairly controversial topic. So do we have any other questions for things? Yeah. Oh, here we are. Okay, so Meebo says, a lot of what you talked about is based around multiplayer games, but what about games that are single player or more isolated worlds? Okay, so that's great. It's a great question. A lot of the concerns that I've noted there were like that sense of unfairness, or well, just the unfairness you don't have to worry about, right? Because there's no competition with another player that is a conflict. So just I haven't seen. No, actually, I have seen it, right? So, like on Facebook, for instance, there's a lot of Facebook games that are single player, and that strategy where you buy your way past grinding situations, right, to make things grow faster. So, for instance, I did a game on Facebook called Tailtown's Friends, and there was a lot of farming and decorating and things like that went on in the game. We had premium plants that you could purchase, and normally you buy like a vegetable and you plant it and then wait 8 hours for that thing to grow and ripen and whatnot. The premium plants would give you more, and you put them in and you stand back and they grow up and they would ripen immediately. So it was a way to get past that waiting and get stuff faster. So a lot of times in the single player games, you could buy a better sword, right? It gets you past these obstacles that oftentimes you could have gotten, by just playing the game a lot or waiting or grinding, and it just lets you bypass that part of the gameplay. The other part with the single player content is that gated stuff, right? So like the DLC is a form of monetizing things where you pay to get access to another area, or maybe pay for a special mod to the game that gives you a different game experience, or a custom new element into the game, right? Like I can imagine if I was running around Skyrim, I would pay to have a smarter, more kick-ass like sidekick to run around with me, somebody who stays close and actually, you know, has more control actions, or at least a better AI to, you know, to keep them from just running off and picking fights, or, you know, all the stuff that you normally get annoyed with, right? That would be something that you could put into a single player game like that. Okay, let's see here. Do you think localization is important to optimize the game monetization? I think so. You know, localization is, okay, so it's not like a direct one-for-one, right? So the localization allows people, players from around the world, to become more deeply engaged with the game, because, you know, if it's another language that you're not as comfortable with, it's going to provide a barrier to your immersion into that game experience. And so through that virtue, if you localize and the player can become more engaged in the game, then that value proposition for spending money within that game is going to be, you know, increased. You're going to feel better about that. You're certainly going to feel like the game developer cared about you as a player, that they localized it into your language, right? So you're already off on a good foot there. However, so on the business side of it, the developer, I can guarantee you, is going to look at how much money and time and effort and resources are going to go into localizing the game versus what's the possible revenue gain off of that, right? Like if it, so, you know, this is all makes sense, right? Like if it costs me $10,000 to localize a game and I get $1,000 of revenue out of that, that's really not a very good business model. So there's going to be thinking about that, and sometimes, frankly, there's just no energy bandwidth on the part of the developer anymore. You know, they finished the game, and a lot of times people are just collapsing, and they just, you know, even if they'd want to do it, they just don't feel like they have the energy to do it. So that's you know, something to think about. Even if the desire's there, you know, other things may be getting in the way. Hey, but hey, maybe the Google Universal Translator thing is going to come along and make everything all better, and we won't have to localize anything anymore. It'll just sort of get automatically localized as we're playing. Which, this is odd in that it's, okay, what are we looking at? Okay. I'm sorry, I had the questions not sorted by time frame, so let's take a look here. Looking at the current market, what genre of freemium game do you think will be successful? I think, well, number one, you know, that Zynga model is going to, that's not going to go away. You know, that a lot of the, you know, they've mixed up a lot of these things, and the thing that people don't like about the Zynga model is that it really forces you to impose your game desires on all your friends, which are not the people that you want to, you know, annoy by begging. So I think having that sort of, maybe this is just my optimistic thinking, but things where like all these things that I talked about where you can make your game experience cooler, you can customize, you can bypass annoying things if you just don't have the time and we just say, I just want it now, right? Just let me buy my way past this one block so I can get back to the part of this game that I like. Those things, games that incorporate that into the gameplay are going to be are going to do well. You know, provided the rest of the game experience matches up with that, and tying the monetization into the gameplay experience in a way that the player just feels naturally like, well, of course that's there, and of course I can spend money on this because it's just a natural outgrowth of what's happening here. You know, that's going to make the game popular, and that will be a formula for success. Having it feel really unfair, you know, having it not a good value for the money that they've spent, having it be really difficult to spend the money. You know what, this is something I probably should have spent more time on, but building that interface to allow people to spend the money. Like if I have to go in to a store and write my name and address and the 16 numbers of my credit card and my birthday and all, like every time I want to buy a pack of gum, I'm never going to buy a pack of gum, right? Like I can do that if I'm buying a house and you know there's a big purchase there. But a lot of what we want to do is make it available for people to really just kind of make it as simple as you reach in your pocket, pull out some pocket change, and get the thing you want right now. So having that in there is you know, thinking about that is important, and that's you know, if you look at the games on Facebook, there's a lot of private currency that players can just buy $10 or $20 worth of change tokens one time and go through that trouble, and then they just kind of have that there, so whenever they want to, you know, pull something out and spend it, they absolutely can, and there's not a big barrier to that. How are we doing on the? Well, our time together is filled up. Let's see here. What's your opinion on having these paid currency be available to the free-to-play audience as well, albeit slower? Yes, absolutely. I completely thank you, Nebo. That's a really great question. That is a point. That is something that we built into the Facebook game where we had our currency. By completing quests and doing other things, by playing the game, players were able to earn premium currency. And there's a couple of reasons why that's a good thing. Number one, it gets rid of that sort of unfairness, any of the unfairness that might have been there, right? Because it just means it's like, hey, you play the game, you're going to get some of these, right? Secondly, it gives players the ability to get a sense of what it's like to be able to spend that money and how nice it is to have that, right? To go back to the pack of gum analogy, right? So I've just had Taco Bell for lunch, and I've got taco flavor all through my mouth, and oh, my friend gives me a stick of gum, and I chew it, and wow, my mouth feels a lot better now, and I'm not worried about breathing taco all over everybody. So because I got to try that out, now that idea of buying my own pack of gum feels much better, right? Now I understand what I'm going to get. So by giving players some of that free money, or that, you know, that cash currency themselves, they can you know, they can feel better about spending that money themselves. Okay, what do we got? Some games that only, Nick Schreiber says, some games that only monetize vanity items don't seem to work out as well as earning the company income. What do you feel has been proven to work best and accepted by gamers? Pay for access, pay for speed, pay for advantages, pay for vanity, or a combination of all. Seems like pay for speed is doing well. War Thunder, World of Tanks. Well, in both of those cases with the War Thunder, yeah, so it's kind of, the answer is not super clear-cut, right? Like it really depends on what the game is. In the case of War Thunder and in the case of World of Tanks, those could be considered unfair, except that in both those games, it's really clear, you know, here's this premium stuff, and you will absolutely have the advantage, right? Like, and you are competing against other players. So you know you can't say, oh, that's unfair, because it's very clear. And, you know, somebody paid to have that advantage. It's like, well, you know, you thought that was worth it and do it. So in both those cases, those are very compelling games. They really get your adrenaline going, and having that sense of excitement about what's happening is a great way to generate, you know, that sort of impulse purchase. And it's validated in the gameplay, right? Like when you spend that money, you get, you know, you are more powerful, and you're going to be able to do things. So that's really good. In other kinds of games, right, where you pay for the access or pay for speech, like the Wizard 101 and Pirate 101, you're paying for access to these gated off sections. Those games are doing very well, right? Like that company out of Austin is, I can't remember, but I've got I've got a friend who works there. They're very successful. So all of the things that you've listed are in your toolbox, in your designer's toolbox. And depending on the game, you need to decide what's appropriate for the game and which ones you feel comfortable with doing, and what matches your audience, and how to go about that, right? So you know, the answer is it depends, and there's definitely money to be had in this. Obviously, this is the whole new growth industry in games. It's one of the major ways this is going, which is why this was an important topic. And so that's my 2 cents. So I'll go for another couple of minutes if we've got any more questions. Anything else? Okay. Oh, okay. What about out-of-game content? Give me, are you talking about, let's say, like ball caps and jackets and things like Assassin's Creed has a whole line of specialized clothing? Is that what you're talking about, Meebo? So Meebo asks, what about out-of-game content? And I'm kind of seeing if that's what the question is, because I mean I love it if people feel that strongly attached to the game. Number one, that's a big attaboy. There. Okay, great. So thanks for the extra details there. I'll finish my thought and read your question or your addition. If people feel that attached to the game, that's a win-win for everybody involved, right? So you know, you've licensed the brand stuff out to a garment place or whatever, and they're making money, and the player gets to buy something that's relatively unique, and it's a way for them to customize their own presentation in the real world to tell everybody who knows what it is, because there's kind of a secret code that when you look at that and say, oh, you know, like if you're a gamer, you look at that and say, oh, is that one of those Assassin's Creed things? Cool. You know, and so you've got that social cachet. Oh, wait, how did I get back over here? Let me get this back to that final page that's got information. Oh, come on, just go to the last page. Go to slide. Is that, there we go. Okay, good. Let me come back over here. So Meebo clarifies. Accessories, events, I recall Pokemon had a lot of events where they can get rare Pokemon available at those events only. Yeah, that's more of a marketing kind of trick or more of a marketing mechanism than an in-game monetized thing. But I mean, it ties in because it is part of the game experience, right? So in the case of Pokemon, you're saying, all right, these are additional creatures that are going to be in the game now. They're going to be introduced. And World of Warcraft had similar things also when you went to BlizzCon. BlizzCon? I'm sorry, I don't remember. But you go to these things and you get codes or whatever, and you can put it in. You can get special in-game items. That's generally not. I wouldn't consider that to fall into the topic of monetizing. That's more like marketing and promotion. But as there is I don't know whether those kinds of events are profitable for the companies. I kind of doubt it. Generally, that's just there as a form of advertising for the game, and is to build awareness and to, sort of build that connection with players and possible players, and to make the company seem cool. So that's not really monetizing. That's a kind of a filtered expense per se. And Tristan says, I would think you'd have to have an established brand for those types of things. Yes, I absolutely feel that those fall much more within the marketing. Now, you could have other things such as the clothing for Assassin's Creed or Angry Birds, those little birds that you can buy all over the place now, and Angry Birds hats, and I'm sure there's Angry Birds underwear and pajamas, right? Like there's all that extra stuff that are additional revenue channels that potentially as a game designer you're going to be somewhat aware of, and maybe if you're lucky someone will ask your opinion about it, because it would suck to have a piece of outside merchandise that either makes promises about what will happen if somebody buys something in the game, or is so out of the brand, like they just get it wrong. Like if somebody put a Han Solo and a Chewbacca in a bubble pack and said, these two hate each other, and now you can make them fight to the death, because they're just getting it way wrong, which I'm not going to tell stories, but that's not impossible to have happen. And so but all that stuff really isn't monetizing that a game designer needs to be concerned about. Our zone of control and specifically our zone of responsibility is what players can click on within the game that they could then spend money and do things, right? So, and when you're thinking about how are we going to make a game that will generate enough revenue to keep the lights on and let us keep making games, and that's really what I wanted to focus here, and specifically on this new free-to-play freemium model, and like things to watch out for. I've been down this road. I have a couple of games now where I discovered a lot of this stuff, right? Because this is a relatively new territory for most of us, and so I've got about 4 or 5 years now in looking at this kind of monetizing, so I felt comfortable about putting this presentation together. So all of this stuff is not just me theorizing. This is from the trenches, late night, head scratching, looking at the numbers the next day, all of that kind of stuff, having players angrily and delightedly telling me, giving us feedback about what we were doing inside the game. And so that's what this is. So I think that's it. I've gone over my time, and thank you so much for attending, and I hope that this was useful to you, and feel free to tell your friends. The IGDA is here to be game developers helping other game developers, right? Like, nobody's going to help us except us. So I've been in this a long time, and I really want to provide, help with what I know, and I know that there's a lot of us here. All these webinars are all a bunch of old timers who are trying to give back and to help other people not go through the same, make all the same mistakes that we made. So go ahead, if you've got feedback or anything that you'd like to say or more topics that you'd like to see, send your letters and suggestions to the webinars at the IGDA. You can't see it, but I'm waving at my monitor. I'm pointing at this part right here. So here, this is my finger. Let's see. Hopefully, no motion sickness. I'm pointing at the screen. There. See, I'm pointing at the webinars thing there. Okay, go there. Send us an email. Tell us what's going on, and we will just go out and make more cool games. All right. Thanks, everybody. Be well.